TradeTheMBI.com. This is John's reports for the 18th of August. Well, 5K chart here for the ES, so it was pretty nice. You can see these old bounds here from these magenta lines. These are from way back, but we moved right back into the zone and not a surprise. These were from previous algo levels, and we literally bounded right in between them to start the day, and that was pretty clean. We had the brief little uptick here, and then it converted into a sell signal, and nice carry through down. Brief attempt to go back up, and this is always an interesting one to see because you have the rising DOC, but then Cyan took over. It wasn't a big spread building right in between there, so you got the orange dip, which is what signaled that move, but coming off of the super high MBI. And magenta at that particular point has to stay up. If it fades at all, you're done with it. And it did pretty quickly right after that. Completely converted to short setup within there, and boom, that made the new lows. And then we started to end up with more of the MBI weight leading. Another build that took place, and then boom, as we started into the main part of the day from the previous one, we started just straight down, and it was pretty clean from there. And that was a pretty easy one too, because when I talk about MBI red, uh, you get the pivots up. That's your opportunity to jump into your short when you're already below, and it gives you usually a higher close, and that's the benefit of it. And then I just follow that one, and boom, we hit the bottom side of that band, and yeah, it cascaded lower from there. And then now we have the pre-market, so it's just a continuation. Nothing's changed from that. So we look at it from the 50K. All we did was fill back in positive extremes from before, and what now has happened is just a little liquidity sweep below it, um, taking us into some pretty deep oversold setup at this particular stage. Not yet a buy turnaround, but pretty clean overall. And you can see this is what we talked about before, was the difference between cyan, yellow leading white as the bullish side, flipping over to once red crosses below that MBI white, then you just look for the expectations for it to move above yellow is to continue the short, and pretty much stay that way throughout. And so as long as you've got both red under green and magenta under yellow, you're pretty much in a short run. You get these brief little pop-ups here where you get like the blue crossing gray, but broadly didn't change anything. And then that corresponds when you look at the DOC. You have cyan crossover and held briefly, but as soon as that span narrows, so you have the first move, and then immediately after that, cyan's already creeping higher, reducing the spread, and it just fades from there once orange is above green. If you don't get the MBI white rise with that green crossover, forget it. You're done. It's not going to support it. And sure enough, from a 50K standpoint, that just broke through cleanly. And, beautiful range, because you're able to say to yourself, okay, I'm right up here at the short, above the 76%, and my expectation is to the low. So you're looking at that range from, the first part of it, you're looking for, 77.38 there, from 78.38. That's 100 points. So that's your expectation. Now, of course, the low, came up a little bit, but now we've retraced all the way to that full low while still in a short configuration. So met that full range. Nothing else to say about it. It's just that pretty. From a daily standpoint, yeah, we're still primary weakness here inside of broader long. Now, think about what I'm saying there. Yes, we expect it with the magenta below to begin cascading. We're at the 76. We still don't have a support ring, but you also don't have a huge rise. So this is just a lack of buyer initiative. And then that's where, if you turn to the DOC, you can see we're expanding that spread. So that spread ratio expansion puts more pressure on the downside. We'll see if it maintains that throughout the day. But even from the previous day, we were kind of paralleling. It was expanding just a little bit, but now you're starting to see a little drop off here from the shakeout. So, yeah, a little bit of softness from that standpoint. From an NQ standpoint, likewise, just a little bit softer. Never really got to the same peak that the ES had, but reading wise, pretty much similar. fairly clean. I take off some of the extra lines just so you can see from an MBI view. It's a little bit cleaner from that standpoint, but that doesn't change what the paint bar recognizes. So, from an oil viewpoint, and this gets to be the problem. People are like, "Well, why did oil go up? There wasn't anything new happening." Well, because people start doing math. If you're in Europe, they do maths. Uh, Never understood where the S comes from. That's okay. Um, the math that I do then says that you're still at a deficit for your ability to produce versus what you're drawing, and that has got to be made up at some point somewhere, and that is going to create continuous demand. Particularly if you don't have economies going into recession, that's a bigger problem. Throw in your expectation of the euro just doing so well. Fantastic. This is dollar devaluation, and that should represent itself in gold, and it has a little bit slower Bitcoin, brief pop. But I mean, look at the disaster of this. I mean, you're getting into this narrow DOC range that is like crazy. It's probably one of the narrower ranges we've seen. But when you get to this kind of narrowing range, there's going to be an expansion blowout. So we would expect to, in the next couple of weeks to see something expand from it dramatically. We'll look for that. Secondarily, this is a 2,500 tick. Working with that one. Likewise, similar configuration where the white, though, is bullish configuration moves within the short. So it's one of those, the closer and closer I get to the action and the more detailed it is, it just means more trades per tick range. So that's the only difference. And literally comparing per candle capabilities, there's a big difference between scalping for 3-4 points versus these broader runs. I mean, there's no question you can still make the big run, which was even from this 2,500 tick chart all the way from just shy of 7,800 all the way to where we are now. Hasn't changed any. It's just a question of what stop you follow, and typically at that point the 50% would be where you would go, and then re-entry. So pretty much not too much of a difference from there. And this gets into an interesting one with the Morganacci, which is also another one I've explored, is these moves that go from your 100 to 0, back to 50, 100 to back down to 50s, then 50s to zeros, all sorts of unique little setups within these. And just it varies your risk in time. So even trading the same security, you can have different risk profile. So the same difference between being in a 2,500 chart versus 5,000 versus 25,000 or 50,000 tick. You're in different time at that point, even if it's still the same underlying security. You, in fact, have shifted where your entry configurations are and or how many there are. Um, Some people want a broad basket of stocks in that, but then you're trying to pick winners, losers, and what you think momentum is going to be in that. And I think that gets to be a bit more sketchy when you can do the same thing in time. If you have the proper indicators, you've got to be able to read the situation in order to know what's happening. And I think that the lagging ones, eventually, if you get a nice trend, it's great. But in a situation like these, where we have markets that are just bouncing back and forth, it's a little bit more difficult. Though when you look at that NQ, even though you're in this range between 61 and 76, it's a slightly upside bias and still continues to be, it's summertime. But that's fading. I mean, and as we get back to September, you're back to school. Of course, in America, they start school a little earlier, which is about another week or so. And that changes things as well. So we'll see how it plays out. But all in all, this is good stuff. Anything relevant, I will let you know on the team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.